Hello, good evening, happy Tuesday. My name is Dr. Christine Anderson, and I am a pediatric chiropractic doctor. I've been in Los Angeles practicing helping families grow up healthy for about 30 years. I'm also a mom of 3 kids and a wife, and I am also passionate about educating people on how to live an optimal life. And there's absolutely no time like now. If you're joining me live, say hello. If you've got questions, you can type them in and I will see it come up on the live chat. We are now, I think it's 6 weeks into this lockdown with coronavirus, and it's becoming more and more apparent that this is really within what we usually see as far as what's happening with the death rate. And I'm not going to go into too much of that, but my point being is that number one, we are at home, all right? And most of us are spending way too much time indoors because, especially if you have an apartment and you don't have a yard, you can't go to a park, you can't go to a beach. And if your environment is toxic, then you are going to be creating health challenges in your body. So I want to give the control back to you. We can't control what's going on with all this stuff, what our government is doing, although there are some protests that are set for this Friday. So people are starting to be like, okay, what's happening? Let's get back to work now that we see these numbers are not in the millions, they're in the tens of thousands, which is a huge difference. But regardless, no matter what, we still need to take control about what comes in our homes. This sort of relates to business, but you have less control over that. You have all the control possible of what you're doing in your home. So according to the EPA, we're spending 90% of our time indoors, and yet the indoor environment is actually 2 to 5 times more toxic than the outdoors. Now, if it's a particular smoggy day here in LA, that may not be the case, but in general, the indoor environment is going to be a lot more toxic than the outdoor. So one of the things you can actually do is open the windows and bring that outside air in, which is going to help unless maybe you are allergic and pollens are coming in. But in general, getting that ventilation, fresh air is going to do you a world of good. So indoor pollution can come from a variety of things. What we're going to focus on is air quality or air pollution, cleaning up our air in our homes. But just be aware, there can be other sources that can come from your water, EMFs, dirty electricity. And I'll talk about some of these things with the air pollution, but even products that you're using on your own body. And I do talk about that in some of my past episodes, so you can check those out. And I'll put the links in the description as well. So what are some of these effects that can occur with the indoor pollution? Well, you can have irritation of your eyes, nose, and throat, headaches, dizziness, fatigue. Long-term, you might have respiratory issues, heart disease, even cancer. So it's not just a little thing, it's huge. Now, there are some populations that are going to be more susceptible, and this is going to be kids because of their size. So the smaller a child is, the toxins are going to concentrate even more. And the elderly, because their detoxification systems, especially if they have ill health, the detoxification systems are not going to be able to handle all the toxins coming in. And I go into this into depth on one of the episodes. So I'm going to put links to everything that sort of relates to what we're talking about in the description so you can look at that. So let's get right to this. I've got 10 areas to cover. Number one is a broad area of off-gassing, and that can come from things like carpeting, paint, pressed wood products that contain formaldehyde, dry cleaning, anything that's going to have an odor when you bring it into your home that continues to come off whatever product it is. And this off-gassing is huge, and it can depend on what you're bringing in. It can last sometimes even months or years. So as in the case of carpeting, it's going to be the vinyl backing and the glue used to hold the carpet to the floor. And chemicals can be released for as long as 5 years after it's installed, but the majority of the off-gassing occurs in the first few months. So you really want to try not to have carpeting. If you need to, you can place throw rugs, which you can bring home, leave outside. If you can leave, the longer you leave them out, the better. And then that way you're not bringing all those chemicals, especially if you have children, because what are they doing? Babies are crawling on the rug, kids are playing on the floor. So it's going to be even more toxic for them. Now, paint and volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, they kind of go hand in hand together. And I'm really sensitive to this. So if anybody's painting, I will get a headache, and maybe my sinuses maybe even will stuff up. There's a lot of paint on the market now that is considered low VOC, so you can get that. And when the paint dries, it's going to have less of that organic compound coming off, but it can still happen. So the chemicals that are linked to cancer are things like methylene chloride and benzene can be found in paint. So you want to be careful of that. Formaldehyde can be found in wood furniture like cabinets and particle board and plywood. Laminate flooring is another a place formaldehyde is used. And these products release most of the formaldehyde after 2 years. So it can be irritating to your skin, eyes, nose, throat. It can cause breathing problems. If you do install these things in your house, again, you want to open up the windows and get that fresh air in from the outside. Do it for at least a few minutes every day, and also keep your home temperatures cool. And that way it's not going to be evaporating into the air as much. You can also use fans to help too. As far as dry cleaning, you want to try not to have your clothes dry cleaned as much as possible. There's a chemical they use called perchloroethylene, and it's a mouthful, but it can remain on your clothes. So not only can it off-gas into the air, but it can off-gas on your body. And then you're absorbing those chemicals into your body, and that can wreak havoc. So if you are getting your dry cleaning and it's got a really strong smell, then you need to tell them that it's not acceptable, because they are supposed to remove most of that chemical aspect. And you'll see things like green dry cleaners, but they're still using chemicals. The best thing is to buy clothes that you don't need to dry clean. And if it does need to be dry cleaned, try not to get it soiled, right? All right, so that's a big, huge category. Number 2 are pots and pans. So this is huge because a lot of people are using non-stick pots and pans, which have Teflon on them. They're marketed as Teflon or non-stick. And the chemical that is the problem is something called PFOA. Now, that's been eliminated due to an agreement between most manufacturers and the EPA. However, a second toxic chemical can be released by this non-stick coating that they put on, that gets released when you're actually cooking, and it goes into the air. You can breathe it in, and it's toxic fumes. And it can even lead to something called Teflon flu and give you symptoms almost like you have the flu. So what are some alternatives? Well, a cast iron skillet, if you season it and use it properly, can become nonstick. Ceramic, glass, those are options. Sometimes it gets a bit difficult when you're using things like that, but if you oil it properly, it can be useful. There are other products out on the market that are using things like copper, and you have to really check when you're looking at those because some are better than others. And there's a cheap variety, and then there's ones that are actually not as reactive. So just make sure, buyer beware when you're doing that. If it's a really cheap pot or pan, it's probably not going to be good quality, and you don't want those things to flake off in your food. So try to not use nonstick as much as possible. And enough said about that. Number 3 is household cleaners. Now, I went into depth on household cleaners 3 weeks ago, so I am not going to go and talk much about this. But basically, again, when these substances interact with the air you breathe, they can form, again, these VOCs, these volatile organic compounds that have been linked to a myriad of health problems. Sprays seem to be particularly problematic. And one study associated sprays, household cleaning sprays, with 100% chance higher of getting asthma as well as other health problems. So I'm going to put a link to that section, that episode in the description. And you want to use natural cleaners. Again, you have to be careful. Look on ewg.org, see what yours is rated, see what is less toxic. And you can also check out my link to All Things Thieves, which has household cleaners that are using essential oils to help clean and keep the surface clean of any problematic microbes as well. Other things like baking soda, vinegar, essential oils, all those types of things are going to be helpful. Number 4 is secondhand smoke. So this is still a problem, even in this day and age. There's still people smoking. And since 1964, the CDC estimates that 250 million non-smokers have died from health problems related to secondhand smoke exposure. So you don't even have to smoke, but if you're around people that smoke, it's a big, huge problem. So basically, number 1, don't be around smokers. That's the best. Try to filter it as much as possible, ventilate it. Absolutely don't have people smoke in your home. Have them go outside. And the health problems of the toxins from the secondhand smoke are different for children from adults. So kids are prone to respiratory symptoms and infections, as well as ear infections. And it makes asthma attacks for them more frequent and more severe, and has been associated with a greater risk of sudden infant death syndrome and lung cancer sudden infant death syndrome. Adults tend to get more heart disease and lung cancer when they are exposed to secondhand smoke. So enough said on that. Now, heating can become problematic, whether it's heating food or your body. So gas stoves, believe it or not, that convenience of having the natural gas is counteracted by the noxious gases that these appliances emit, which are carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and even some formaldehyde. So you're going to want to make sure your stove has a ventilator hood or use an electric stove. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those those noxious gases in a second. Soot, smoke, furnaces, fireplaces, those again can create problems, and more than half of all pneumonia deaths in children under 5 are caused by soot. Additionally, more than 4 million people die of premature deaths connected to cooking using solid fuels like wood and charcoal. So you want to stick with more efficient heating methods powered by electricity, natural gas, propane, or fuel oil, and those can be better choices. So again, that could be an issue. And talking about these harmful or noxious gases, radon is one of them. And it's a radioactive gas that bubbles up from underneath your house, from the ground. It's naturally occurring as uranium breaks down. So if your house has cracks or a basement or a crawl space, this odorless gas can find its way in, and you're not going to be able to detect it. You're not going to smell it. There's nothing to it. But it can raise your risk of lung cancer in your home. And this is actually happening in 1 out of every 15 US homes, according to the EPA. And it doesn't matter whether your home is new or old, you can be affected. So, fortunately, there's a test that anyone can do for as little as $10. So, if you want one, you can get a test kit at a discount by contacting the National Safety Council's Radon Hotline, and I will put that phone number in the description. Now, carbon monoxide is an odorless, invisible gas, just like radon. It's produced by the incomplete combustion of fossil fuels. And this is where the problem comes in with things like stoves and space heaters and fireplaces. So what happens is with carbon monoxide is it stops your body from using the oxygen that you are trying to get into your body. So it affects actually what's going on internally, and that oxygen can't be carried to your brain and the rest of your body. So you might feel tired, headachy, dizzy, nauseous, be confused. You might have a fast heart rate. And if that concentration gets high enough, you can actually die. So you want to actually get your heating systems checked by a professional yearly and make sure all of your combustion appliances like heaters have been installed correctly. Never use these appliances without vents. You can also get carbon monoxide detectors for every room that you can plug in, and that will alert you if the levels get too high. Nitrogen dioxide, which is not to be confused with nitrous oxide that dentists use, is a toxic and corrosive gas. Again, you're going to find this coming off stoves, space heaters, and fireplaces, and it can irritate the throat, eyes, nose, respiratory tract, and impair lung function. So again, you want to make sure all these appliances are checked and especially by a professional. All right, number 7, air fresheners or anything with fragrance. We're talking about plugins, sprays, Febreze, candles, laundry sheets, anything with perfume in it, body care products, ones that you spray around or spray on your body, any type of air freshener. These are pure chemicals. Anything with a fragrance is pure chemical, not natural. And again, it's going to add those volatile organic compounds or VOCs to the air. So one study found phthalates in 86% of air fresheners. Now, phthalates are known to interfere with hormone production, and they can reduce sperm production, and they can cause birth defects. You do not want things with fragrance in it. And unfortunately, these companies do not have to disclose what chemicals are in their fragrance, and the label will not say phthalate. It'll just say fragrance. So the best way to add scent to the air is through essential oils, and that's through a diffuser, not through burning them. That changes what goes on and can create a volatile organic compound just from burning essential oils. If you are interested in learning more about how to clean and detoxify the air using essential oils, following this live presentation, I am going to be doing a presentation on just that, how to use essential oils, on my Young Living with Dr. Chris channel. And I will put a link to the channel in the description, and you can go check that out. Number 8, pesticides. It's estimated that 3 out of every 4 US homes uses pesticides to get rid of pests. Go figure. We live in a buggy world, folks. We're not going to get rid of them. But you can do things to naturally eliminate pests. I'm not going to go into all of it right now, but you can certainly Google it. Because 80%, we are spraying things in our home to get rid of pests, but you're also spraying things in your yard, and you're also walking on possibly, a park where if you're walking your dog where they're spraying something, because 80% of the pesticides we're exposed to come from indoor sources, but the rest you're bringing in from the outside. And pesticide exposure carries health risks like nerve damage, eye, ear, and throat irritation, and also an increased risk of cancer. So there's natural ways to get rid of pests. There's essential oils. They do not like oils, I will tell you. I just used peppermint oil the other day when there were some flies in the kitchen. So I will probably delve into that on my Young Living with Dr. Chris channel at some point, but not today. Coffee can be used. There's so many natural ways you can do this. I know certain pests don't like bay leaves, so you can go in your garden even and help deter these pests. Actually, I was reading the other day, rats don't like eucalyptus oil. So there was actually a study on that. Anyway, more for another day. I'm almost done. So if you have questions or things you want to know, go ahead and type that in the chat. Number 9 is dust, dirt, and dander. So along with the pesticides, the best way not to bring dust and dirt into your home is to take your shoes off when you come in the house, because we carry a lot of stuff on our shoes and it gets tracked through the house and then it can go into our air. Pet dander is the skin flakes. So it's not the hair. It doesn't matter about the pet's hair, but it can be an allergen for many people and can cause wheezing, irritation, coughing, and really an extreme allergic reaction in some people. Dust mites are common allergens. They're microscopic. We cannot see them, but they live on things like pillows, mattresses, carpets, and they feed on dead skin. So gross. And I don't know if I've seen the microscopic blow-ups that they've done of these things, and ugh. So you want to try and keep your house as free of things that collect these dust mites. That could be stuffed animals for kids, unfortunately. I know they're super cute, but it's just not going to work. If you do have stuffed animals, you're going to have to wash them a lot. Washing things down and wiping them down is the best way to keep all the dust mites from coming up. And you want to do it with a damp cloth. You don't want to do dry because you're just going to push everything into the air. You want to wash sheets in hot water. You can also use essential oils for this too. I can't remember the one off the top of my head, but there's a few that do help with this. I don't want to say it because in case I'm wrong. You can put your pillows and mattresses in encasements. That also helps keep dust mites down. For everything, dust, dander, dirt, keep floors vacuumed and wet mopped. And like I said, take those shoes off. Okay, number 10, getting to the end, damp buildings and mold. So some of the health effects include things like coughing fits, sneezing, dizziness, fever, exhaustion. It almost sounds like the flu, right? So it can also cause things like digestive distress and can trigger asthma attacks. So the main thing or the main trigger is high humidity. You don't want to leave standing water in your home. You don't want to leave any surfaces damp or water damaged because then they just become breeding grounds for mold. So the EPA recommends you keep your house at a relative humidity of 30 to 50% to avoid such problems. Things that are usually wet, right, create more problems like bathrooms and basements. That's the prime area for mold. You want great ventilation. That's going to be your primary thing, is to open those windows in the bathroom. If you have a window in the basement, open that and try to keep things as dry as possible to help suppress that mold growth. Make sure you have exhaust fans in the bathroom. Maybe you have a dehumidifier or something like that in the basement. Keep your attics and other tight spaces ventilated so moisture can't accumulate. If anything becomes wet, like your carpets and your floor, you want to get them dry as fast as possible within 24 hours. And if you do use a humidifier, if you live in a dry environment, you want to make sure that you're keeping that device super clean. So that is about it. So the bottom line is the more you can keep these things out of your home, the better chance that you're going to have for keeping your system, your own body system, not overloaded. I do want to also mention that there is I've been reading a little bit of a debate about air purifiers. Some people say they can even be problematic because they can actually recirculate some of these things that we were talking about. So I'm going to look at that more in depth, and at some point I'll probably do a post on that, or I will put something in the description. If you have whole house air conditioning, you actually already have an air filtration system built into that. You just want to make sure that that stays clean so that you're not circulating dust and mold or whatever through your house. So you want to make sure that you have that serviced. But by running your air conditioning on a regular basis, you can keep your air purified. Really super quick, there are plants that have been found to clean the air. I'm not going to just list them all here, but I will put the most common or the most helpful in the description so you can take a look at that and have them beautify your home and help purify your air. All right, everybody, have a great Tuesday, rest of your evening. I will see you next week here on Dr. Christine Anderson Chiropractor and the show of The Secrets to Optimal Health, Optimal Life. Have a great week. Bye.